Hey guys and girls, and welcome to tutorial 2 in this Adobe Photoshop Layers course. Now this tutorial is for intermediate users of Photoshop. If you haven't used Photoshop before and you are new to layers, then do check out the beginner tutorial on layers. And equally, if you're an advanced user, we have an advanced tutorial on layers. Go and check that one out. So let's jump straight into Photoshop. We'll kick off where we left off from tutorial 1, the beginner tutorial. And what I want to talk about first is layer grouping. Now, to group layers, we can do it a number of ways. You can add one layer to a group or multiple layers to a group. Obviously, as the name suggests, it makes sense to group multiple layers. So I'm just going to click the new layer icon multiple times just to create a few more layers here. Now, what you can do is you can either come down to this group icon down here. If we hover, it says create a new group. I'm just going to click that icon. Now, you can see this drop down now next to the group. Now this is going to collapse and expand the group. Currently there is nothing in that group, so there is nothing to collapse and expand. I'm just going to select 3 layers and I'm going to click and drag these layers into the group. Now straight away you can see there's a change in the indentation. You can see that these 3 layers are now indented. Now what that means is they are now in that group. So if I collapse the group, you can see there that those layers are hidden. Now this is super helpful when you have a Photoshop document with maybe 50 layers, 100 layers. You can have multiple different groups all named correctly, and then you can collapse and expand them as you're working on certain parts of your image or your manipulation or whatever you're creating in Photoshop. So let's just expand that. Now we can also create groups another way. So we can click on 2 layers, we can select the layers beforehand and create the group. So that's going to put those layers straight in. So you can do it either way. You can create a group and drag layers in, or select the layers and then create a group. It's going to put them all in. Now layers don't have to be in a group, and you can remove them from a group. So what you want to do if you're going to remove a layer from a group is just click on the layer you want to remove, and then you want to click and drag, and you can see here we have this blue box around the group. That means it's going into the group, which we don't want. If you come slightly above, you'll see that it changes. So we've kind of got this rectangle, if you can see it there on the screen. If I just release there, it's going to put it above the group. So let's collapse these groups, and you can see that this layer is above the group. So there you go. That's a nice easy one for you. It's very handy indeed. You can name groups as well as you named layers. So if I wanted this to be group 1 and this to be group 2, then we can just do that nice and simply. So there you go, that is creating groups. Now next, what I want to talk about is blend mode. So let's come in. I'm just going to click on these 2 layers. I'm just going to drag them to the top, and then I'm going to select these 2 groups and this additional layer we created and drag them to the bin just to delete them. So now what we have is our 2 rectangle layers and the background layer. Now I want to talk about blend modes. Now blend modes are essentially the way the blending mode and how it's going to affect the layers below it essentially. So let's take this blue square. So we've got this blue square selected, and I'm just going to click on the drop down here, and I'm just going to come down and hover over these blend modes. Now in Photoshop, nice little update, it actually shows you the result as you hover over. So you can see our image changing. Now for example, what this is going to do is apply this blend mode. So let's come into lighten, for example, or screen. Let's come into screen. So it's going to apply this screen blend mode to the pixels on this layer, and they are going to affect the layer beneath, or the layers beneath, depending on how many layers you have. So if you're trying to create a certain effect, for example color dodge, there you can see it's much brighter, and these are kind of grouped, these blend modes. I won't go into that for now, but you can kind of see, and if you just roll down these, you're going to see certain effects. So for example, vivid light. So if I go to vivid light there, you can see that that affects these lights, makes them more vivid with the blue color of the square. So obviously that's a very drastic effect, and you wouldn't normally do that. That doesn't look great. But maybe you wanted to actually create this effect. You could come up to, for example, filter, blur, and you could add a blur there. And what that's going to do is add a nice blur to our layer. If we increase that, and you can see it's created these vivid lights over here. So if we turn that layer off and back on, you can see just how much one layer can affect another layer using blend modes. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo that. I'm going to turn the layer on. Just going to go back, undo. Just keep going back until we change that. So we've removed the blur, and I'm just going to change this back to normal. So that is blend modes. There's various different blend modes. I won't go into detail on the blend modes in this tutorial, but essentially different blend modes can be used for different things, such as screen can be used to improve lighting, overlay can be used to enhance, you can have hue, saturation and color, luminosity, various different effects from various different blend modes. So there you go. Next up, I want to talk about layer masks. Now, layer masks are super important in Photoshop. They help you blend, they help you hide parts of a layer essentially. So layer masks are super powerful, and essentially what a lot of people will do if they're new to Photoshop is, say you want to remove some of this square. This square is too big, right? Let's say we come in and we want to remove that. Now, what a lot of people will do, they'll just delete part of that layer. So let's just select this part of the layer and let's just press delete on our keyboard, right? We've just deleted part of that square. Let's just deselect. Now, those pixels are gone forever. There is no way to return those pixels, and that is what is known as a destructive way to edit. Now, we want to avoid working destructively. We want to work non-destructively. So let me show you. I'm just going to undo that. And you can see there, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come down again to our trusty icons here, at the bottom of the layer stack. I'm going to hover over this one, which is add layer mask. So I'm going to click on layer mask. We're going to see this square appear on the right hand side. Now, this is super important. This is a layer mask for this blue square layer. Now, the way layer masks work, anything in black on this layer is going to be hidden. Anything in white in this layer is going to be revealed. So because this layer is fully white, we can see the whole layer. So let's come up to, with our layer mask selected, now we've got two different options. We can select the actual layer and we can select our layer mask, important. So let's select the layer mask and come up to edit, fill. And I'm just going to fill with the foreground color, which is currently set to black, as we can see down here. So let's just click OK there. And you can see that's completely hidden the layer. And that's because our full layer mask is in black. So anything in black is hidden. So we've completely hidden this layer. So let's do the opposite. Let's come up to edit, fill. And let's fill with the background color, which is white. You can see our background color here. Click OK. And there you go, it's revealed. So what I can do this time is make a selection. So let's just select here. And I'm just going to come up to edit and I'm going to fill. And I'm going to fill with foreground color. So click OK. And you're going to see that is going to hide that top bit of the layer. So now on our layer mask, we can see we've got this black square over here, which is hiding this part, this top part of our square. Now, if you hold down Alt and click on this mask, you're going to see it better. So you can see we've got this black square. So this part of the layer is hidden. Anything in white is revealed. So if I come back off that, you can see that we've hidden this top part of the square and we've revealed the rest of the square. Now it's super handy and a super effective way to blend layers and work layers together. For example, that's a selection, but maybe I wanted to brush. So if we've got our opacity here on our brush and our flow at around 50 and our hardness at, let's say, 0. If I brush on the layer mask in black, you're going to see we can start to create subtle blends. Now, this is super handy when you're blending multiple images together, which is a very common task in Photoshop. So use layer masks, become familiar with them. Don't use the eraser tool. Always use a mask instead, and it will drastically improve your workflow. It's a major part of working with layers, and in my workflow, especially when I'm performing complex photo manipulations and compositions with multiple images, this is something that I use regularly, and I often brush in like this to blend two images together. So that is layer mask. Next, I want to talk to you about layer styles. Now these are different to layer masks, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete this layer mask. So you can right click, you can actually just disable it if you like, you can delete layer mask. I'm just going to click delete, and that's going to remove the layer mask and reveal everything there. So layer styles, now you can get to them two ways. You can come up to layer and you come to layer style, but the easiest way is to simply double click on the layer. So I'm just going to double click on this layer. So we've double clicked on the black square, which is this one here, and you can see we've got all of these styles and all of these options, a whole new dialog box. Now this is quite in depth. There's a lot of settings and a lot of features in here that you can use to sort of create various different effects. For example, you've got the fill opacity of the layer, you can drop that down. You've got the general opacity, which is the same as the opacity up here. You've got the blend mode, so you can adjust all the layer settings in here that you can adjust out here. So nice and simple. Now what we've got on the left hand side are various options. Now a lot of these are as they sound, so bevel and emboss. You want to create a beveled and embossed look. Stroke is a sort of pixel border, in a shadow, in a glow, satin, color overlay, gradient overlay, pattern overlay, outer glow, drop shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a couple of these on for you. So let's put that outer glow on. You can see straight away we have this glow around the outside of our image. Now within each layer style, so outer glow, we also have properties. So our outer glow, we can choose a blend mode of the outer glow. Now this works in the exact same way as the layer blend mode. So if we want just normal, that's just going to show it as normal there. Maybe we want to have dissolve, darken, multiply, lighten, or color dodge, for example. You can see now this is creating a glow. Now one nice thing is you can turn this on and off, so you can see the actual impact here. You've got the preview over here, so you can turn it on and off as well. So you can see that's a very subtle outer glow. Now I'm just going to put that to normal. We've also got things like opacity, so we can adjust the opacity of the outer glow. We've got the color, so maybe we want to change the outer glow to a red, so you can see the outer glow there is a red. Now I'm just going to pop that back to white. Now you can build these up so we can have multiple. So let's just add a stroke as well, for example. So we've got a color fill. Let's change a color fill. Let's choose a color to like a nice greeny color. Let's click OK, and let's drop the size down. So again, settings for each thing, massive stroke there and very small. Let's go up to 21 pixels so we can see roughly 24 pixels. You've got position, inside, outside, blend mode again of your stroke. So there are various settings, and I'm sure as you can see as I'm speaking, it may be a little overwhelming just how many there are, but do come in and have a play with all these layer styles and the settings. Likelihood is the effect you want is in here. So let's add one more. Let's just add let's add a gradient overlay, for example. Now gradient overlay is going to do exactly as it says. It's going to overlay the pixels in the layer with a gradient. So Photoshop has loads of preset gradients, loads of different colors, so you can come in and select, say, purples, or let's go and select oranges. You can select some nice gradient overlays. Again, you can select the blend mode. So there's various different options. So if you want to come in and change the blend mode of this gradient overlay, you can do that. So super powerful and super effective. Everything we've covered in this tutorial. Layer styles in particular are very handy indeed. You've got things like drop shadow as well, which are great for text if you want to add drop shadow to text. Now one thing to mention, you can add multiple of each. So where there is a plus icon in here, you can add, say for example, 2 strokes. So if I click again, I've now got 2 different strokes, so I can add another one. Let's just change this. Let's increase the size so you can see now there are 2 strokes included. So wherever there is a little plus icon, you can create multiple layer styles there. So you can create multiple drop shadows, for example. So I'm just going to click OK, and you'll see that they have been applied to the layer. Now you have this little FX over here, so you can close that and open that. Say you have lots and lots of layer styles applied. It can get complicated, and well, not complicated, sorry, it can get a bit busy in the layer stack and take up too much space, so you can collapse. Now I'm just going to leave that expanded, and what you can see here is we've got this little eye icon. Now the same as a layer, we can simply turn these off and on individually, so we can turn the strokes off there, or maybe I want to turn the outer glow off. You can also double click on here. So if I double click on the outer glow, that's going to quickly take us to the outer glow. So that's a handy way to navigate and a quick way to navigate. Now, one thing with layer styles, they are transferable. So if I right click on this layer and come to copy layer styles, I can then click on another layer, right click on that layer and paste layer styles. Now that's going to apply the exact same properties to this layer. So this is very handy indeed. Say for example you have text and you had 5 different sort of words in different text layers. You applied all the drop shadows you wanted, made the text look great. Then you can simply copy those layer styles to the other text layers in your document. So super handy, super effective ways of working with layers. It's very powerful. Layers is kind of the nuts and bolts of Photoshop, if you like, and if you get good with working with layers, you're going to get good in Photoshop and you will improve your workflow and the speed of your workflow. So thank you very much for joining me in this tutorial. It's been a pleasure and I'll see you in the next one.